Welcome to season 3 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, lifelong helper, nonprofit founder, and your host. I've been interviewing the helpers for a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to now be sharing these inspiring conversations on our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Today, our guest is Mary Fisher Nassib, one of the founders of the nonprofit So Good Now. Join us for a fascinating conversation about growing the next generation of philanthropists and leaders through sports. You're not going to want to miss it. Well, welcome, Mary. I'm so excited you're here today. I'm really excited to introduce our audience to our guest today, Mary Fisher Nassib, who is one of the founders of So Good Now. And I'm really excited because you have a really unique philanthropy. Your nonprofit is very different, and I love what you are doing. So why don't you, first of all, welcome and start by telling us a little bit about what you guys do.
Thanks, Heidi. Be happy to. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great to meet you. So our organization is called So Good Now, and it's SOWGOOD Now. And we named it that because we want young people to start sowing their seeds of goodness today. Most philanthropy starts near retirement age. And by the time philanthropists get into their stride, they're facing the end of their life. So as a mother of 5 athletes and a former Division I athlete and a coach, for many years, decades in my house, I noticed that there was great disparity in a lot of the players and their access to sports. And that was symbolic of the great disparity that we have in our country. And I always thought, well, gosh, there's so much excess here and so much need there. How can we build bridges? So in July of 2018, the co-founders, also former college athletes and have raised athletes, and we got our kids and their friends together. We told them about philanthropy, and we invited kids from the middle school and elementary school to a football give back. Now, I know.
And what is a football give back? What does that look like?
A good question. And it's similar to what I saw you kind of do in the Catholic schools. It's that you recognize the value of near peer mentoring, right? To do something, I can ask a young person to do something, but if I'm a 6th grader and a high school football player, ask them, we'll do it 100 times over.
Completely.
So selfishly, I thought, can I make the greatest impact and close the gap from where I sit as a mother? I'm also a former financial advisor, so I know my way around the financial services industry, as well as the sports industry. And then I studied philanthropy. I decided that I would learn it myself and bring others along with me, i.e. the athletes. I cannot get 8 million people to follow me on a weekend, but a team can. So I thought they're already primed. They already understand the value of teamwork. They already understand diversity, right? Everyone has a role, and they also understand sacrifice for the common good, right? You can't win if you're thinking about yourself. So athletes are a good, they're a good, I guess, ground or to start philanthropy, because the coaches and the teams have already established a lot.
So your 3 girlfriends, it's 2018, you're raising 5 children, you have a job, you have a whole lot of things going on. And I think I'd like to think that that parents really want to raise, good, kind children that help other people, that have empathy. I think most of us do. I believe people are innately good. And you're just talking with your girlfriend saying, hey, because you have 5 kids and you're already running, and you have 5 athletes, not just 5 children, 5 athletes, which means you're doing multiple laundry and multiple sports activities and a job and laundry, and you're feeding mouths, and all those things that we just do with life, because you just want to throw starting a nonprofit into that mix because that just seems like a good thing to do. I mean, so tell me how this came together, and then tell me, because I understand, like, you guys get together and I understand the goal that you want to raise philanthropic kids, and you know that your athletes are going to be the perfect model. Like, this is the starting ground. And obviously, because of your background, it makes a lot of sense. So what happens like then? Like, how does this all come together?
The background too. So prior to reaching out to the co-founders, I did a lot of research and studied a lot and prepared a lot for that launch of July 2018. And then, piloting it was kind of like, hey, all these things that we're thinking and feeling, is it true? Do other people feel the same way too? So I have a question for you. How do great athletes get great?
Training, repetition, doing the same thing over and over and over again. Like, everyone gets great.
Right. So it's the same philosophy. And I've coached for years. If you take that same philosophy and you say, how do people get great at giving back?
It's right. And it's also, I think there's a lot of things, but one of it's modeling the behavior, which is a huge piece when you see that that's kind of part of what it is. But it's no different. It's doing it in a daily activity and doing it regularly, making it part of, like, brushing your teeth. I mean, for me, philanthropy is like brushing my teeth. It's just part of my DNA. It's part of my family's DNA. It's now part of my children's DNA. But it isn't always everybody's DNA, right? That you realize, you think that all of us, and people are good, but people don't always know how to start, right? And I think you're spot on in identifying, getting them young, because I'm sure people ask you all the time, people ask me all the time, well, gosh, I love what you do, but I just don't know how to start. There's 1.6 million nonprofits. Where do you start? How do you start? So,
very good question. Things that I think that we're answering. So the first part is right. Service does not have to be hard or unpleasant. It can
correct.
be fun. I think that's the first thing that we break down a barrier. And there are 45 million youth that are involved in organized sports in the United States every year.
Wow.
In contrast, there are only 500 youth philanthropy programs. So it's very, very small. So I thought, okay, if youth philanthropy is good for youth, obviously it's leadership development, right? Finding your passion. We know that it's good for youth. It's good for communities. You lift diverse voices, the communities get the benefit of it, and they become the young people not only become beneficiaries, but they become active agents by philanthropy programs. But Heidi, here's where it's really important. Youth philanthropy is good for philanthropy. It's good for the philanthropic sector, right? Gone are the days where philanthropy is only for older, white, wealthy people. You see it every, and that's great to say, right? That is great to say. So what do you do? Now, I coach volleyball. I could take you into another room and I could say in a half an hour, I can give you the basics of volleyball and I can improve your game 50% because of the knowledge that I have and how I can break down just the skill set for you. So if we take that and we bring that skill set, which through the Chartered Advisor and Philanthropy program at the American College, you get the fundamental tools that are needed to understand philanthropy from the donor side, from the financial services side, and then from the fundraising side. And we take those tools, we boil them down, and we introduce them to teams of athletes, high-performing athletes who already know what it feels like to win. So if you carry that feeling of winning and that same feeling of pride that they have for their team, and you expand their circle, right? Mother Teresa said, what the world is, people draw the circle of their family too small. So you just start thinking about diverse youth as part of your family. So now we introduce the tools. I call that supply side philanthropy. In the traditional philanthropic sense, That could be family philanthropy. It could be a philanthropic advisor or wealth management or family office counseling a family on how to share philanthropic tools with the next generation. So who does that reach? Maybe 5 to 10 grandchildren.
Right.
In my mind, if we are going to serve the underserved, we have to build relationships with them. And we can't do it unless we involve more people. And what's a better platform but Teams, where there is a diverse group of very socioeconomic group kids. Now
so the kids come together. So your kids come together and they play sports to raise money for other kids. Is that right?
So that's pretty good. It's pretty traditional thing, right? That's the tradition.
Right.
Is hi, I am the XYZ nonprofit. Can you guys do a 3-on-3 tournament, or can you charge something and give us the money?
Right.
But it's very innovative, and it's a little hard to grasp, right? But what do the teams, not only were the volunteers and sharing their skills with youth from underserved areas, we'll just say high school B there's 30 kids on their soccer team, and they bring 30 kids from the Boys and Girls Club. That's, 7 miles away.
Right.
At high school B soccer team plans the event, right? Leadership skills,
right.
All of the things that are needed to be a philanthropist. Event planning, that's part of it. But it's service learning. They're doing it it's activity-based philanthropic education. The part where So Good Now does the work is we bridge the relationship between the team and the underserved youth. And we find a good match. Usually between 3rd and 7th grade is usually the age group that we bring.
Right.
Now, how do we prepare those players? Well, right away, you said it, there's good in everyone, right there. But the confidence to do good is dimmer in some than others, because it's not always easy.
It's not always promoted, and it's not always presented. I think people underestimate our youth, their capabilities. And I think that they don't realize when you unleash them and give them the skill set, which you're obviously giving them, that they can accomplish remarkable things. And so often they're so much better fundraisers than we are as adults, because they're so authentic and sincere and passionate.
And there's a lot of them, right?
And there's a lot of them. Yes, there are.
That's the fundraising piece. But this, I think you'll find very, very interesting. I set up a donor advised fund with 3 or 4 of the players or the coaches. Sometimes we even invite the program director from the youth group, whether it be Boys and Girls Club or another organization.
Right.
Why do you need to do that? And I say, well, because that's the way philanthropy works. If you want to be intentional and you want to be strategic and you want to have a plan, want them to understand that they do have tools that can maximize their personal lifetime impact. And the fund is named by the team, and they will grant out some and keep some in the fund. So why is that
interesting?
Why is that important? It's done every day. It's just not done out in public. It's usually financial advisors say, man, you really got to you have to find a way to reduce your taxes. Put some here, put some there, and here, open a donor advised fund. That's the traditional model. And then someone in the family would say, hey, we have this money to grant out. A lot of the large providers of donor advice, they have their own version of how they can get kids involved in gifting.
Right.
But why we're so unique is that we give the team ownership. I'm all about ownership. This is, you do the fundraising, you do the planning, you decide what organization you want to grant to. There's a kid on your team that has a special cause. Not only do you have the power today to run this give back, but you're already organized. And if someone else needed help, you'd be able to do that. So
got it. this, like I said, it was such a unique concept, and I've interviewed hundreds of nonprofit founders, and you're bringing so much of what I do in my daily world is running a youth leadership organization, with the philanthropy and the financial background and the coaching, like all together. It's fascinating to me. I love this model because it's so brilliant, and the community building that you're doing and the empowering the kids. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. So when you have a team, I understand like going to get the Boys and Girls Club team that you're going to play. When you have your teams that you're bringing of your kids to play the other team, your team has been like coach, your team has a goal, your team knows that they want to do this give back for the Boys and Girls Club or for the other team or for a specific thing, correct? So they're going into that game knowing that they're going to raise money from this game. Are they getting sponsors for the game? Obviously you have your fund, but
You're thinking of the traditional way kids are used today.
right.
So if you don't think about it that way,
Okay.
think about if you think about how a private operating foundation is run. Can you describe that to me, what that would look like?
Right. When a foundation has a set amount of money that they invest into a creative foundation, and 5% of their revenue from their investment fund is distributed to different causes throughout the year. And nonprofits like Task or yours would ask that foundation for a grant, and they would determine with their board a percentage of the money that would go to a nonprofit cause aligned with their mission.
Perfect, right? So if you
do I get a passing grade?
That you know it as to be true because it happens now, right? You know it to be true because it happens now.
Right.
But you think of our high school or college teams, it's a very small model of a private operating foundation.
Right.
The funds, they're doing the fundraising and the grant making, the same as a foundation.
Oh, interesting. Okay, got it.
Simulation of how a private operating foundation. And so the program they run is what? It's the give back. So it's strength, leadership development.
Right.
But, so again, if you think, how do you become a good athlete, right? In soccer, the 5-year-olds get out on the field. The first year, what do? They all swarm the ball. And in philanthropy, there is no place for newbies to swarm the ball. You get hit with, what's your mission? Define your mission, refine your mission. It's too broad. It's too this. It's too that. You have to find your niche. Now, that to me is putting a lid on good, and it's the opposite of what we want to do. So our programs create space for those conversations to happen at a very early age. We're not saying, oh, you can't give to this. We're having explore it, having them ask themselves questions about what they think. So now, year one, the high school team does it. The seniors graduate. And this is good because I have seen your website and the work you do. You understand the value of
100%
replenishing the pool, and you understand how much you can get out of a group by doing it that way. And that's right. I coach 7th and 8th grade volleyball. You always like to have some of the 7th graders on the team because the next year they teach the incoming class.
Right. You need the waterfall to keep going is what I always say. I mean, at Task, we train the youth leadership organization that I run as my day job. We train the trainers. So the college kids teach the high school kids leadership. The high school kids teach the middle school kids. And so you have a similar thing, except yours is through sports, where mine is through, camp and different programs at schools that we do. So when you're starting a nonprofit, you have so many challenges to begin with. You already have a super unique model, which is fantastic, but that in itself has challenges because it hasn't really been done before what you're doing. So share with me some of the challenges that you run into in building your business and starting, So Good Now. There's a lot of things that you're accomplishing, and you have a lot of moving parts in what you're doing. So what have been some of the bumps along the way?
So that's a great question. And I don't normally like to talk about the bumps. I like to focus on the successes.
But we're getting to that. I promise.
But it's important to know that it's not easy, but when you have clarity in your purpose in life,
Right.
the bumps get flatter. So have there been obstacles? Sure. I mean, we were founded in July of 18, and by July of 2019, our first year, there's such this eager desire for young people that I'm sure you see, right?
Absolutely.
Be connected to to something great. There's just this
Right.
for
Bigger
love,
than themselves. Right.
yeah, this hunger there. And um that first year, everywhere we went, everything played out the way we did. So we did the football in July, and then we asked the swimming. So we took some kids that April's Learn to Swim month, and these kids were going to go to summer camp, and they need to get their badges in order to go into different levels of the pool. So we engaged a high school team to go through treading water, etc. But the first time, talk about the first obstacle is to go to a football coach and say, yeah, teach to your players,
Right.
and we're going to do it this way. So the first hurdle was, and this was basically philanthropic education 101, was I said to the players, the high school and college boys, you need to talk about giving back, and you want to tell them that philanthropy is the love of humankind and that they have gifts that they can share. And my son, I think 20 at the time, was at University of Delaware playing football there. He said, that's too big of a word, Mom. You can't say philanthropy. And I said, well, that's not true. They can say it, and they did say it. And at the end of that, when people saw the video, they would say to me, we need more philanthropy. So I thought that was great.
Oh, I love that.
So we called the swim coach. We had probably 3 meetings with the football coach to kick it off and try to explain what we were trying to do. But the swim coach said, yeah, we saw you did that with football. Absolutely. I'll get the volunteers ready. So when
Great.
you ask about it, if people see it, they believe it. And so then we go their first year, July 18th to July 19th. And the model is you repeat it each year. And that way the kids are already accustomed to it, and they can deepen their knowledge, and they can do a better job, right? Same way
Right.
you up in a sports level, the same thing. You can set a pick in basketball. You can do this.
Right.
You have different levels of skill to it, or tasks. So then, what was the biggest obstacle? So we got into high gear, gaining some traction, had a good fundraiser. Then COVID hit February 15 of 2020. We had college teams come together. We involved the youth from the Boys and Girls Club in the grant making, and we asked them to decide between higher yield learning activities, or arts and crafts activities, or sports equipment. And then in contrast, we had the college volleyball players vote as well. And the volleyball players voted for athletic equipment, and the youth group for higher yield learning activities. Now, that to me speaks to proximity. That location for that Boys and Girls Club, not that they didn't like athletics, it's that they already had a full relationship with someone who provided them. And, Heidi, I think that's where our work becomes really, really important, that we can get current information and immediately grant to it.
And then in normal philanthropy, there's such a long process. It can be a year out, or a grant cycle, or once a year is the only time that you can ask. And that doesn't mean that your program isn't happening then. And how do you fund it? So that's impressive that you can distribute and immediately identify a challenge and have a solution for it, which is incredible. So I have a couple of other questions. So when you are, raising 5 children and raising 5 athletes, which is, and having a job and dealing with all the challenges that you just have in everyday life, and you're still building this organization and growing this organization, COVID hits, the bucket is heavy. There's days where, the buck stops with you and your co-founders. There's a lot there, and you have kids that are relying on you, that are relying on you for these programs. What fuels you to kind of keep going when you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can take another thing on today? Like, there's days that we all have them, whether you're a nonprofit or not. But I think a nonprofit, it's a little, I think the bucket's heavier because we see the kids that we're serving, and we go to bed thinking about those that didn't get something because something didn't happen that we didn't do. We have humanity on our backs, and in your case and in mine, it's children. So the bucket can be really heavy sometimes. So what fuels you in those moments to think, okay, I must persevere, I must carry on, I know we're doing something great?
That's a great question. And it's one I think everyone, kind of has to dig deep into, and finding purpose in your work. And kind of weird, when I was growing up, I always felt called. I wanted to do something different. And in a large Catholic family, my choices at the time were to be a missionary. That's the only thing I could think of, about missionaries.
Right.
And my parents would say no to missionary, and I would say no to being a nun. I went to Villanova, and I got a volleyball scholarship there through Title IX, was recently passed. And I think my first memories of philanthropy through sports were, I was on the track team, and I'm the 6th of 12, and I had a pair of sneakers that I used for volleyball, basketball, and track, but I was a sprinter in track. And one day, one of the boys on my team tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey, you might want these," and they're a pair of lime green spikes. So he didn't even, he again, that's proximity, right? That's my
Right.
unique as a sprinter. And what was unique about that, and this is what drives me, is that he saw that I needed them. I was okay without them. I had become
Right.
accustomed to saying, you got to make do with one pair of sneakers. So
Right.
to me is effective philanthropy. And if we have that component happening in these give backs, right, we can
Right.
create opportunities for those life-changing things to happen, which in and of themselves are huge, right?
Absolutely.
And
Well,
so
and the beauty of that is the pay it forward model, which obviously you were the recipient of the shoes. You now pay it forward in a big way. And not only that, you teach the paying forward in thousands of ways. And I always say, for me, the privilege of planting the seed of compassion in children is the gift that I have in the job, and why I have my day job, and why I love my day job. Because when you plant that seed and you see it grow, there's nothing more rewarding than that. And that fuels me to keep doing it, because you see the goodness, which, that you're cultivating every day in your work. And there's nothing more joyful than seeing that. And you and I both have that privilege of being able to see that. So, we talked a little bit, but we didn't really get into the impact of what it is that you guys do, which obviously is great. And everyone has heard me say this 1,000 times who listens to this podcast regularly, but I do have a love-hate relationship with the word impact, because as nonprofits, we are measured and held accountable in a good way, that we have to have goals, and we have to let our donors know their ROI, their return on investment, and they all want to bet on, a good horse. They want their money to go someplace they know it's going to be making a difference. But how you measure impact of teaching leadership, how you measure that, how you measure the impact of the ripple effect of philanthropists you're generating. There is no measuring tool that can measure what the real work you're doing, and looking down the road when you see the pay it forward ripple effect of all your work, that's immeasurable. So that's where I hate the word. But in asking and having a platform here to share the impact of So Good Now, what do you think that is? And it can be a story, it can be numbers, it can be both. It's one of those words that, it just gets me every time. There's no other word, but
when you don't believe in someone, right? So think about if you're a parent and you have a child, an adult child, and you give them money, but they have a type of an addiction problem or something, you keep very close tabs on how they spend that money. So
Right.
a lot treat their nonprofits in a way that is non-trusting, right? There's a lot of
It's a
talk.
great analogy. Yeah, I love that. It's true. Yeah, perfect analogy.
And I view that as, hey, you can see how we work, you can see what we do. And you talked about the good in kids and the ripple effect. You couldn't stop it from growing if you tried. As soon as that first act takes place, there are other kids that are watching it and get the courage to do it. So you couldn't stop that growth if you tried. But as far as impact reporting, we'll get down to the ROI. We measure volunteer hours. There's a statistic in the United States that volunteerism in the teenager group has declined, I think, steadily it's through University of Maryland, the Do Good Institute. Anyway, it's dropped way low. And we also say, have you volunteered in the past X number of years? So we can report out on the volunteer rates. The other another impact report, which is really a byproduct of the work we do, but it's very relevant in today's environment, is that college campuses are reporting that 86% of their athletes are saying that mental health is an issue for them. And we've seen it demonstrated not only in the Olympics, but there's all these different stories about that. And the work we do at So Good Now reverses those two numbers. By volunteering, you have all the research shows that you feel better, you're more connected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's
the dopamine to the brain and all of those great things that athletes get already from exercising, but they get triple the amount when you do something
yes
good.
And sometimes it's we say we shift the focus from achievement to service. That's really our goal. And some of these kids have been told since they're in fourth grade, well, don't you want to play on the varsity team? And then they're on the varsity team, don't you want to play on the college team? And service to others is a way to pause that, is a way to let them glimpse that there is life outside of achievement. So the two impact pieces there are in the improvement of mental health and the increase in volunteerism. Those are very easy to measure. Because of the fact that we are working with the supply side on the athletes, we can track by surveying them at the beginning of the season. What do you know about philanthropy? What have you done? Has this led to any other things? And I can give you some case studies. So one of our softball players, she drove her first give back, engaged her team during the pandemic. She got her players to do virtual videos for kids that were shut in. Her public presence made her a community figure. And another organization, Reflect.org, that fights suicide on college campuses, reached out to her and said, will you blog for me? Not only did she blog, but we had a drive. She now works as a graphic designer at Ursinus College. She developed leadership by building her give back, and she said, can we donate to this thing? That's the thing. So those are very measurable results. Very short time. We're not 4 years old yet, and 1.5.
Incredible.
Yeah, 1.5 of those years was COVID. So I no doubt what we can do, and we're trying to get organized so that we can do more and meet the demand. And I have great board directors, great co-founders, great volunteers. Everybody is just one huge energetic team.
It's the best. Well, and I think though that sometimes we're our own worst enemies, because nonprofit founders, I'm not saying we're all type A, but it seems to be a little bit of a trait in most of us. And if we serve one child and we have one child that has just that impact and that success that you mentioned, the next year is going to be 10, and the year after that, it's going to be 100, and then it's going to be 1,000. And we just keep pushing our goals. And you're an athlete, so you're obviously a very goal-driven person and target-driven person, which you have to be in this work, because at the end of the day, the horrible thing and the hardest thing for all of us is that we can't serve and help everybody. That we want to make a difference in the biggest way possible. And all of us founders are helpers. That's just who we're hardwired as we are. And the best thing about it is that we walk this earth to make it better for other people. The hardest part is realizing we can't help everybody. So if you could dream any dream for So Good Now, which I know you've got some big ones, and you're a baby. I mean, you're a 4-year-old. Like you're not even a kindergarten as a nonprofit, right? You're just out of the gate. What does that dream look like for you?
That dream to me is that every team has their own identity, as a philanthropic team, that they're a team of philanthropic athletes, and they share the same passion and the same level of skills in giving back as they do in their sport. And that the number of 500 youth philanthropy programs is something that is laughable today, because it's kind of like, remember when we only had 3 channels on TV? That's how they'll think about world. And where not only that, but the financial services industry now had charitable giving as one of their priorities when they sat down with a family or an organization, that the remarkable tools that are out there to make giving more effective, not everyone has a voice in it. It's more inclusive and it's more diverse, and it's distributed more nimbly and more timely, etc. That's my dream. And I think
beautiful.
We're making it happen. And you know, the athletes are making it happen, and I'm honored to serve them. When I look at them and I think of the potential that they have to do good, I'm in awe. And I think if I could give them one seed, that it will be magnified.
Tell me, you've been on this journey for, quite some time, and there's a lot of life lessons that come with all of this work, a lot of hard work, but a lot of things that you've learned. So what are some of the things that you've learned in the last four and a half years of starting this?
You're a lot smarter than I am. So I kept thinking, I can't wait for my kids to finish sports, because then we can start getting focused on giving back to the community. And it wasn't until my son, when he was playing for Penn State, went into a children's hospital, and I saw how everyone just reacted to him and the other players. And I thought, gosh, Mary, you're so thick. You have it right here, and here you're trying to just look at other things. So I think how I'm changed is I really focus on what's in front of me. And to say, the saying is work with what you have. And why is that so important? Because everybody's striving for whatever else is out there, where really, and you were brilliant at that time, one of the biggest barriers for athletes. And you figured that out earlier than I did.
But that's such a wise lesson, because I think that, like you said, people are striving for everything, and they're, especially athletes, right? They're always moving to the next thing. They're not in the moment. They're not right in front of them. They're not here in the now. And at the end of the day, everybody has something to give. Everybody has something to give. And I think just teaching that lesson it is empowering, right? It's empowering when you tell someone who's always kind of been told that maybe they're on the receiving end of things. No, what's your gift? Like, what are you giving? Like, no, you have something to give. You have something to give. I mean, we do that at Task when we're telling kids, like, no, well, who looks up to you? And they're like, what do you mean? Someone looks up to me? Yes, you're not just looking up. There's someone down there looking up to you, your cousin, your little brother, your neighbor, your classmate. And when you shift that perspective for children and let them know that there's someone's role model, their behavior changes completely. And it's just in how you position it, right? And so I think that letting people focusing on what's there right now, that does exactly that, right? It's brilliant in its simplicity. Do you think you've changed at all since you started this work? Or do you think you're the same person?
No, I've changed a lot. I am definitely more fulfilled. I'm happier. I feel closer to where I should be. I am proud of myself for being a role model. There's a lot of risk. I mean, I'm I'm from a family that really doesn't understand the nonprofit world, and I know they're looking at me as if, okay, we'll see, right? We'll see. And I always had a you know, very strong independent thinking where, okay, I can understand how that doesn't work for you, but this is what works for me. Um, and I hope I got a note from my goddaughter, and she said, "Happy birthday and thanks for being a great role model." And
Oh,
I'm hoping that not only am I changing the world for the good in the sports world, but others that have come to know me in different lights, and that they're able to see um, that piece of themselves that they want to use to give back. That they say, "Well, if Mary can do it, I can do it," and that's what I'm kind of hoping. That's what makes me happy because I get
I
glimpses
love that.
every day.
And you've certainly showed us that. And thank you for inspiring our youth and doing it, planting those seeds early, because that is the greatest gift for our future. And boy, do we need a crop of kids that are helping other people. The world needs that so badly right now and every day and every minute. So thank you for that, Mary. I'm so grateful. Tell us how we can support you. We can get involved. We can volunteer. We can donate. Tell us where we can find you and all your good work.
Thank you. So the website is sogoodnow.org. It's SOWGOOD now, NOW now. So don't wait. Go there now. That's the first.
Yes, go now.
If you're a fan, if you're a fan of sports, or you're an athlete or a coach, you could ask us about how you want to start a program in your area, and that would be a great way. We are having a golf outing coming up, so we are really working hard to do some strategic fundraising. We have some pro bono consultants that are currently helping us build out a sustainable funding strategy. And we're looking forward to, gaining more donors, more people who believe in our mission and understand the power behind the work that we do. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. And you can always email me at team@sogoodnow.org, and I'd be happy to answer further questions. But sure do appreciate you offering me this opportunity, Heidi, and connect with you. And I love the work that you do, and I'm very grateful to just be able to have this conversation with you. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you just for inspiring us and helping us to really, you've certainly opened my eyes to thinking beyond the box, thinking how we can take these incredible kids and plant seeds of compassion in them. And I hope everyone listening is taking away just how important it is to grow philanthropists and to grow kindness and empathy and compassion for fellow man. And that's what you're doing, Mary. So thank you. It's such a gift. And we're just so grateful for this time. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Mary Fisher Nassib, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think Mary's comment about focusing on what's in front of you now is so inspiring, important, and true. To learn more about modern day heroes like Mary, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at Charity Matters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. And please don't forget to go to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star review. Remember, together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity Matters. See you next time.